So, in previous session, we learned about how to use a middleware like Express.js. So, today we will learn how to create APIs. How do we create API server side? We will design the business logic so that we can use that API in the client side to communicate with the database and to create one end-to-end project. So first, you need to understand about the APIs concept. So to understand API, what is API? You need to know about the topic distributed computing. You need to know about distributed computing. So to understand what is APIs, what is API and why they are used, where they are used, you should know distributed computing. Actually, um, in software programming, there are different types of computing architectures. Computing architectures are there. We have like grid computing, we have like parallel computing, we have like we have like cloud computing, we have like distributed computing. So there are different computing architectures in software technologies. Some you may heard, some you may not. So most popularly you heard about cloud and distributed regularly. Actually, what is this different computing we are not discussing? What is this distributed computing? What is the concept of distributed computing? Actually, distributed computing, distributed computing allows allows communication communication between two applications running on two different machines. Communication between two applications running on two different machines. The communication between two application running on two different machines. So actually it also allows communication between two objects running in two different process of same machine. Two communication between two objects running in two different process of same machine. That is actually distributed computing. Distributed computing is nothing but, for example, we are having a client computer and we are having server. Suppose in the server we are having, here we are having some YouTube app. So here we are having some YouTube. YouTube app is present. How do you watch this YouTube app on client? Two ways are there. One is you can open a browser, and from the browser you can access YouTube and watch it. Is browser specially designed for YouTube? No. It is universally used for any application. You can access and use it. That is web application. You are accessing from a browser, that is web application. In your computer, you may have a YouTube app. In your computer, you may have a YouTube app. This app communicates with this app. It can share data between these two. That means the YouTube app that you are using in your mobile or in your PC for watching YouTube, that is not web application. We call it as distributed application. So, for example, if I ask you, tell me about some distributed applications that you have on your mobile. So, almost all, like Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, Zomato, all these, Paytm, PhonePe, everyone, all these are distributed apps. They are not mobile apps. Mobile apps means what? Mobile apps means mobile native. Not only mobile native, you don't need any internet connection to work with them. If any app is asking for, I want a connection to show you content, that is not a mobile app. That is what kind of application? Distributed. Distributed application. It is not mobile application. Mobile application means like camera, calculator, calendar, phone book, gallery. All these comes under mobile apps. These are distributed apps. You have Netflix, you have other OTT platforms. All those are what? Distributed. So currently very much in use these distributed applications. Distributed application, distributed means what? Communication between two applications running on two different machines. That means on client one app is there and on server one app is there. They can communicate with each other. That is what distributed is. What is second definition? It allows communication between two objects running on two different process of same machine. That means it is not only that. For example, you have one computer. In this computer, in one process, one app is running. In another process, another app is running. On same computer, two applications can share information between them. For example, you are having a bank app. You are having a bank app. This bank app will send an OTP. OTP comes to SMS app. SMS is not bank related. It is a separate app. Now what bank app can do? It can read the OTP from SMS app and it can fill the OTP automatically. Am I right? Not only that. For example, do you know you are watching some Make My Trip on your mobile? In Make My Trip, you have browsed some bus or trains or flights. After that, close and open Facebook or YouTube. Suddenly, you will see advertisements for them in that YouTube and Facebook. How Facebook knows what I watched on Amazon or make my trip. That means in your computer, in your device, mobile, two apps are sharing information. Do you know in operating systems like Apple, you can control it? Do you know Apple OS? When you install app, it will ask, do you want this app to share its data with other apps? You can block it so that one app cannot share data with other. That is little better security. Otherwise, other apps can track what you are doing. So that means on other apps, what you are doing, some other apps are knowing. That is called distributed computing. Designing an application like that, that is what distributed computing. So distributed computing means communication between two applications on same machine or on different machine. That is distributed computing. Now question is how they communicate. What is the communication medium? How they communicate. So actually, communication specifications. Communication specifications. We have three important communication specifications. One is SOAP, REST, and JSON. We have three important communication specifications, means how they communicate with each other, how two apps can communicate with each other. Now we are going to build one app like that. That means client side React app will be running, server side Node app will be running. These two apps are going to share information. So we are going to build a distributed app. We are going to learn how to build a distributed one. So in this, how they communicate. Actually, three communication techniques are there. SOAP, REST, and JSON. What is difference is actually SOAP is a service oriented architecture protocol. SOAP is service oriented architecture protocol. In SOAP, what happens is consumer sends an XML request. Consumer will send an XML request. That means consumer is the client who wants the data. He will make an XML request. Usually XML request will be like this. Suppose product. So in the product ID is some one like this. That is how the request will be. Usually XML contains markup like this. So consumer sends an XML request. How the provider sends an XML response. So request and response will be in XML form. That means it will send a product. The product is having ID 1 and product is having name TV something and the product is having price. That means that ID related product details will come. Like this, the data is received. The request is in XML form. The response will be in XML. This is called SOAP service request. So how the communication happens? One is SOAP, another one is REST. JSON. In SOAP, consumer sends XML and the provider will send so same XML response. Now the question is, why this XML? Generally, how data is transported. Usually from one computer to another computer, to transport data in a network, we follow a mechanism called COM marshalling. We call it as COM to marshal. COM to marshal is a concept, common object model. That means generally in computer technologies, data is transported from one device to another by using a technique called COM marshalling. In COM marshalling, what happens is object is converted into binary and the binary is again converted into object. That means we have object. That object is present in our database. Now we need to get it and show it to some application. That object cannot travel as it is. So object is converted into binary code, bytes. That binary transports to the target machine. Target machine collects the binary and convert that binary again into object. This is called COM marshalling. And remember, data can be transported in a text format, in a PDF format, in a doc format. That means you can in XLS format, CSV format. These are all various formats of sending the data in a file. But what is problem with them is text, PDF, documents, XLS, CSV. The problem with these formats is these formats are heavy. They use more memory. They are not lightweight. Not only that, they can be infected by virus. That means a text file can be infected with virus. PDF file can be infected with virus. Not only that, they convert from binary to object. That conversion, it may be blocked by firewall. In your computer, there will be firewall. Firewall is a security for various types of virus attacks. If any virus infected content is trying to come into your computer, it will block. Generally, any binary code is being converted into object, then it thinks like a threat, then it will block that conversion. That means even if data is not infected with virus, sometimes it may be blocked. For example, do you know you send some email? You think that that email is very good, normal, but sometimes that email goes into spam. Do you know spam means? It thinks that this is not a proper mail. It is having some advertisements or something. But you sent a normal content only. But the robot cannot understand that in a normal way. It thinks that it is some suspicious and it will send into spam. That means even people who's at higher level, like software companies, when they send an offer letter to you, even they cannot control it. They will say that please check your spam for that offer letter. It may be inside it. Why? Because the point is, if any small suspicious content is there, it will block. To overcome all these issues, we started using a language which is lightweight, which can easily translate the content, which cannot be infected with the virus, which can flow through the firewalls, and that is XML. Why we prefer using XML for data transport is XML and JSON. The main purpose is they are lightweight, they can be offline, they are not infected with virus. They are not infected with virus. JSON files, XML files, they cannot be affected by virus, and they can flow through the firewalls. That is the reason XML and JSON are the formats of data. Data is kept in a format of XML or JSON so that it is easy for transporting in a network. So the main purpose why XML and JSON are used, that is the reason. So communication happens using XML format. But there is another one. We have REST. REST is actually representational state transfer. Representational state transfer. We have REST. In REST, what happens is consumer consumer sends a query, a simple query request. That means it will be like this: server.com/product/1, or it will be like ID is equal to 1. Simple query request. If they are using routing, the URL will be simple. Server side also routing is present. Now provider provider sends an XML response. It sends an XML response, and optionally JSON response. These days, majority of RESTful services are sending in JSON form, not in XML. That is the reason Fake Store, NASA API, whatever you saw, they are all RESTful. How you requested, how you requested https fakestore.com/products/2. That is a query request, not XML. But response came in which format? JSON. So RESTful services, XML already I given above. JSON will be in this format. You know JSON format. So ID is 1. So name is TV. Like this it will be. Price, we have some price. Like this, the response will come. So query request will be in simple query, and response is in XML or JSON. So most of the situations these days everywhere we use RESTful. So we have another communication, JSON. In JSON, JavaScript object notation. So in this, consumer sends JSON request, and provider sends JSON response. That means the request and so we are not much using the concept of what JSON. Majority these days still we are working with what? RESTful. So these are the communications. That means how distributed computing works. That means how the applications in a network they communicate by using these mechanisms they communicate. Now we have another important distributed computing technologies. We have distributed computing technologies. That means in order to use this in your technology, suppose you are a Java person or .NET or Python or PHP, then how to use distributed computing and which distributed computing is required for you. That is important. That means there are various distributed computing technologies for different languages. For different languages, different distributed computing technologies are there. We have popular Corba. It is used in C, C++, and more than 14 languages. So that means Corba, Common Object Request Broken Architecture. That is, Corba is used in almost several languages. C, C++, Java, all these. We have DCOM. So it is used in Visual Basic, like language. We have RMI, Distribute Component Object Model, Remote Method Invocation. It is used in J2E. EJB, Enterprise Java Beans. It is used in Java. We have web service. Web service is known to all technologies, C, Java, .NET, PHP, Python, all these technologies knows web service. We have a remoting. Remoting is used in technology like .NET. These are different distributed technologies. So one distributed technology known to all of them is web service. Web service is a distributed computing technology used by Java, .NET, PHP, Python, all technology people. But Java have separate distributed architecture like RMI and EJB. And .NET have separate distributed architecture like remoting. But all of them can use one universally. And what is that? Web service. Web service. That is one popular distributed technology known to every language. So there are so many distributed computing technologies. For example, I will show here. These are the distributed architectures actually. So these are generally different computing architectures, as I told you. We have distributed computing, cluster computing, cloud computing, grid computing, parallel computing, like that. In that, what is distributed computing is, this is distributed computing definition actually. It allows communication between two applications running in two different machines or two objects running in two different process of same machine. That is called distributed. These are all distributed technologies actually. Corba, DCOM, EMI, RJB, EJB, RMI. You can see this is Corba. common object request broken architecture, and this is DCOM, this is RMI, remote method invocation, this is EJB. These are different web service known to all technologies. So every technology knows one concept. What is it? Web service. Remoting is for .NET like technology. And how they communicate, the communication happens in these ways. All these not required for you. Few are I'm showing. These are three specifications. We have SOAP, we have REST, we have JSON. SOAP already I showed you. The client, consumer and provider. Consumer will send an XML request. Provider will send an XML response. REST, representational state transfer. Consumer will send a query and provider will send an XML or JSON. In JSON, both request and response is in the format of JSON. That is how the communication happens. So even today, many technologies are using this web service. Many technologies are using web service. Even today, Java, .NET like technologies are still working on web service. But web services have a problem. That means, so the most, one of the most commonly used distributed technology is a web service. however, however, there are several issues with web service. That is the reason our technologies started migrating from web service. What are the drawbacks of web service? So, what is the concept of web service? What are the issues of web service? Actually, issues with the web service. That means web service is one popular distributed technology which we were using. But now companies are not using much web service. They are migrating from web service. What is the problem with the web service? Why they are migrating from the web service? What is the concept for that? Is actually what is the issue with web services? Generally, it runs it runs only on HTTP protocol. It runs only on HTTP protocol. So it runs only on HTTP protocol. That means it is not good for other networks because we have FTP, file transfer protocol, which is used for intranet. Internet runs on HTTP, but many companies' network will be intranet. Privately, they have some apps which they access. For such reasons, it will not work. And important, it runs only on web servers. It will not run on other offline local servers. So web server, only web server it will use. On other local servers or local file systems, when you host, they cannot work. Another important is the problem with the web service is it uses SOAP. That means it is not RESTful. It cannot communicate using REST. It majority depends on what SOAP. In SOAP, what request must be in which form? XML. That means it have complex URLs. URLs. That means it is not supported with routing like techniques. What is the purpose of routing? Routing makes the URL simplified. For example, actually, if we want to access data from any particular URL, above already I showed you. So we will use like server.com/product question mark ID is equal to 1. And here, if I am writing like that, in simple routing, it will be like /product/1. This kind of simplified URLs are not supported. There are so many issues of this. That means the primary response. So response always in XML. Response is always in XML form. So these are all the drawbacks of communication. These are all the drawbacks of web service actually. So that is the reason to overcome the problems in web service. So we started using the concept of API. So what is API? So application programming interface. Programming interface. So what is the key factors about API is it runs on any protocol. So on any protocol, it can use REST. So it can support routing. So it can respond with JSON. So what is this API? Main concept is it provides a business logic. It provides a business logic. It provides a business logic that can communicate with the data in backend and make the data available to any device and OS services, operating system services. That means so data can reach any device. You can say can reach any device and any OS, operating system service. Anytime, any place, anywhere it is available. That is the concept of API. That means actually here we have a mobile and we have a PC. So, or we have a watch, some smartwatch. Now we have some data. Now this server side, we have a server side business logic. Business logic. This will configure an API and this API communicates with the data. It gets the data and it sends the data which is understandable to all. Anywhere it can reach. The data will be in which form, XML or in which form, JSON. It can reach anywhere. The main intention of API is this. The main concept of API is this. So that means make the data available in such a way it can reach everywhere. For example, you are having weather forecast. You can see the current weather on your PC. You can see the same weather on your mobile. You can see on your smartwatch also. How data is reachable everywhere. That means smartwatch is a low bandwidth device, very small device with less memory. How data can reach iPhone, Android, Windows, Linux. It can reach every operating system. That is possible only with the concept of what? API. API means a programming interface where we write logic in such a way that it can communicate with the data and provide the data which is understandable to any operating system and any device. It can reach any device even with low bandwidth. So API is a business logic which will allow data to reach everywhere. That is the concept of APIs. Actually, the world's first API was eBay. eBay is the name of world first API. eBay is a shopping site, and first API that came into software technologies was eBay. After that, all our millions of APIs are present, but this is the first API. Even today, this eBay is very lightweight API than others. Actually, in your Paytm, PhonePe, Google, you have shopping. That means you can shop on Paytm or PhonePe. PhonePe, Paytm are itself apps. In that app, that shopping is provided by eBay. That means in those apps, eBay is running. That means now imagine how much lightweight it is. That means it is running in another small app. It is able to run in another small app. That means the shopping is provided by eBay. Even today, Amazon, Flipkart, and all these people, all shopping sites, they follow the architecture of eBay only. The primary architecture of all those shopping apps is eBay. Do you know there are so many browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Safari? Can you tell which architecture these all browsers follow? Which architecture all the browsers follow? Different browsers are there, but they follow one standard architecture. Can you name it? And the name of that architecture every browser follows is Netscape. Netscape. Do you know Netscape is the world's first browser? Actually, first browser is Mosaic, but Netscape is officially standard. Even not only that, that means everywhere we follow the standards of the primary. That means who invented this concept? Their architecture is very much followed everywhere, right? Browsers invented by Netscape, and these people's architecture currently all browsers follow. Do you know mobiles? You are using different company mobiles. Mobiles also follow one architecture. Anybody have idea? They follow an architecture called Six Sigma. Every mobile have to follow architecture called Six Sigma. And do you know it is the architecture invented by Motorola? That means all mobiles in the world follow Motorola architecture. All browsers in the world follow the architecture of This one. That's the reason, Army, Air Force, Navy, all these walkie-talkies, they are all Motorola owned, not Samsung or LG or Apple, right? They standard follow certain satellite phones. All those follow Motorola. That is the standard architecture action. Usually, software technologies also, many similar type of technologies may be there, but they have a common family architecture. That is what actually the concept. So this is the architecture actually, and this is yeah, this is the concept of API. This is the concept of API. So what is the point about API? To design a business logic, and that business logic have to communicate with different. That means it should able to reach everywhere. And these are all the APIs, different types of APIs we have. In 2000, we have this eBay. This diagram stopped at 2010 because I prepared this presentation in 2010 when we were teaching people on APIs related to .NET technology. 15 years back, we designed this presentation. We stopped after that because after that, millions of APIs are there, hundreds, thousands of APIs are there. So this is the API growth up to 2010. What is having? We have this in this presentation. I kept that. But after that, so many APIs, hundreds, thousands of APIs are there. But these are API evolution actually. So that means API so now became a primary concept everywhere. But when we trained people on this distributed computing, web services was very popular. Even today, web service is popular. For .NET people, after web service, it came with a WCF service. Even today, some companies use WCF service, but other technology don't know that. But other technology people know only two, either web service or APIs. APIs are latest. Actually, they are not latest. They are there from 2000 onwards. But now they become trend. That means they become more in use because people are using much APIs now. This is the concept of API, right? What is the concept of API? Now, what is our job? To write a business logic which will communicate with the database, get the data, and provide the data in JSON form. Actually, there are so many APIs. For example, you see Open Weather API. This is a weather API. This is a weather API. Suppose we want to provide weather forecast on different device. This actually a few years back, maps, weather, Google used to provide free, but now they made it paid. That means you cannot freely use it, you have to pay and use it. Earlier, we used to have several free good APIs. Now also free are there, but they don't give live data. If anybody is providing live data means they are charging for that. That means it's not free, you have to buy it. And this is weather API. You can see this weather API. Let's go to this API calls API doc. And you can see that this API documentation open. Okay, now you can see that the APIs will provide the data in which format. So many are there, including maps and all. When you go to air pollution API, it will get me that API and it will give you that air pollution. These days on smartwatches and everywhere you can see it. And you can see this is the URL. That means it is using which one? RESTful services. The request will be in a simple URL. The response it will send. The response it will send in a JSON form. The response is in JSON form. Actually, We can have a XML also, but default it is which form? JSON. That means what happens is you have to use this air pollution URL, and in this URL you have to send latitude and longitude. When you send the latitude and longitude of client, these two values you have to send. Then you purchase the API keys. I told you NASA API also you have to get a key. If you purchase the API key and put it, they will show that data. So how much air pollution, sound pollution, or just weather, different types of APIs are provided. How to get latitude, longitude of client? You know, in JavaScript, how do we get the location now? How do we get the location in JavaScript? We have a navigator geolocation. By using navigator geolocation, we can get the location. In JavaScript, we can get the location. So the concept here is how to create such API. Our job is now learning how to create the API and use the API. We will see how to create the API, right? Let's see how to design this API. For that, what we are doing, we are using API with Node and Express.js. API with Node and Express.js. How we can create an API with Node and Express.js. Last session, already I told you how to install Express.js. But here, how to create API and all the methods and all to communicate with the database and all. Let's see. Actual first thing you should know is to configure API and handle all requests. You have to install. So npm install express and save. And you have to install. Another one is very important one is CORS and save. And why you need them, I will tell you. One more is MongoDB. This already we done. Huh? So to create a API, you need all these three. What is the purpose of this? So to create API, you need all these three. So what is the purpose of this and how to handle them? What is the purpose of Express is it will provide middleware library for various reasons. Not only one library, it has so many libraries inside. Actually, few months back, we used to use a library called Body Parser. Body Parser is a library which is used for converting the data from string to JSON, JSON to string like that. But now latest version of Express.js, they have inbuilt body parser. So we don't need a separate body parser. So Express have a lot of libraries inside. What is Express.js? It is a framework. Framework is a collection of libraries. One library for communication, another library for translation, another library for creating app, another library for creating a server. It can create a server also. That means lot of libraries are present inside Express. So now what is this CORS? cross horizon resource sharing. Cross horizon resource sharing is nothing but what are the requests you can manage from an API. Actually, we can manage requests like get, post, put, delete, like that. So many are there. Now, the point is get is for fetching, post is for submitting, put is for modifying, deleting. I want to control them. That means only get and delete should work. Post and put should not work. But when you design API can handle all. But how you can restrict an API to handle only specific action? That means in one situation, it should allow only get and post. In another situation, it should allow put and delete. For example, we are designing customer module, admin module. Customer can view and customer can submit, but customer cannot delete and edit. Who can do that? Admin can do that. That means for admin, we should enable them. For customer, we should disable them. That means how you design a request which can be enabled and disabled. That is possible with the help of what? CORS. Cross horizon resource sharing. It will control the requests designed in API. So it is very important to have this CORS. MongoDB also already we know. What is it? MongoDB is a drivers library. This library is responsible for communicating with the database, right? So you need three libraries. So here, Express provides libraries for communication, parsing, for communication, parsing, and server, app, etc. App means what? Creating, creating server, app, etc. And CORS is required for managing the requests. CORS is required for managing the requests, like get, post, put, patch, delete, like that. MongoDB is a drivers library to communicate with the database, MongoDB database. So to communicate with the MongoDB database. So these are all the concepts. So now we will see how to create these API. That means what we will do is now we will create database and API for to-do application. So we are developing a to-do application. Later we will use another project, to-do application. For to-do application, we will create database and API. And we will use this in the backend. So what is the concept of this to-do application is a user can register and he can log in and he can view the appointments. He can add appointments. He can view appointments, delete appointments, and modify appointments. That means user can store his appointments and he can view the appointments, delete, modify them. CRUD operations, all we can perform. For that, we need to design the front end, backend API and the backend database. For database, usually we need two tables. One table for users, another table for appointments. We have to create two tables. So database and the tables. So we have two database name we will give as to do app. So just to do is enough, huh? Right. Tables. Tables means in MongoDB we call them as collections. Na? In MongoDB we call them collections. We need two collections. What are those collections? Is one is users, another one appointments. Appointments. So users collection will have user ID, will have a user ID. It is a string type. User name, that is a string type. Password, string. So email, string, like this. We have mobile, string. These are enough. Appointments, we will have appointment ID. Appointment ID. This is a number. And title is string. And the description is a string. And the date is a date type. And user ID is string type. And this is the foreign key. That means it comes from which one? Users collection. Users collection is, this is the primary key. The primary key of user will be the foreign key in appointment, because every appointment belongs to some user. When that user login, only his appointment should come. But all appointments are kept in one table only. All appointments we keep in one table. For every user, we don't create a separate table. All appointments are in one table. Then how do you know which appointment belongs to which user? For that, we use a relationship between users and appointments, right? Now, these are the tables we have to design. We have to design. And you know that MongoDB provides the approach of ORM, where you just write the logic, database will be designed for you. We will see that, how it will create for us. Now, for that, we need to write the APIs. So that means now we have to design API methods. API methods for communication with the database. What are the API methods? Actually, like fake store methods, we will do. How fake store methods are having /products/one, like that. We will create some API methods that we'll see tomorrow. Right, in tomorrow's session, we will design the complete API now. Right, and that is final. Now we can implement this in our React, and we will build a complete end-to-end project with all CRUD operations. Right, that we will see in tomorrow's session. Okay, right.